Well, I'm Dotan, and this is Yehuda. You can see him in the picture. This is Yehuda when he was a rookie. He was later my sergeant. I was under his command. I still is. And today I'm going to tell the story of the occupation from our point of view. Breaking the Silence is an organization of ex-soldiers who participated in the occupation, and it's here to tell the point of view from the inside. I mean, literally inside, what we felt doing those actions. Forget the politics, forget the historical debate, what we felt. I'm not here to talk about the Palestinians or the settlers. I'm here to talk about the soldiers. That's us. Today at Breaking the Silence, I'm in charge of getting more and more of testimonies from other soldiers. It's been 2.5 years now, and we've gathered more than 1,000 stories from more than 400 soldiers. And it all began when Yehuda got released, at the time that he was released, and he expressed something while discussing that we all felt inside. We felt that after a while in military service, we felt that something was wrong. To tell the truth, I didn't know exactly what was it back then, and it took me a year of process to understand it. This is me. It's the picture of me back then. I used to have glasses, and my M16, which I carried for 3 years. Now I grew up here. This is Haifa Bay, and I can tell you that when I was 18 and joined the army for 3 years, like everyone else do it by law in Israel, this part of the West Bank in Gaza, which is the occupied territories, was very far from anything I knew. I knew that there were settlers there and Palestinians over there also. In the West there is 3 million Palestinians here, and among them 300,000 settlers. And I knew there was something because I was politically aware. And I served in Hebron after basics. I did my basics here in the desert, and I arrived Hebron. It's over here. And I can tell you that the first night I was shocked. Shocked. I've never seen so much hatred from the settlers. I've seen many graffitis that I was very amazed to see. But I was already inside. I played a role. I had my uniform, and I had my gun, and I had my helmet. I played a role in that play. And when the bus arrived, it was night to Hebron, and we got off the bus, and the company that we replaced got on the bus. Very short briefing by the platoon commander, and my platoon commander took me and other 5 guys to do the first patrol in the city at night. And after 2 hours, followed him, very narrow places, very dark, very, very scary. We invaded a house, and from then on, I think that the whole process of being numbless has begun. I don't really know when it began, but I think this is the point where I, for myself, point that this was the start. And then I'm going to tell a story of how I came to this process of being numbless and being in the mind of occupier. And later on, we're going to tell how we got from the process to breaking the silence. For a little historic briefing, this is the West Bank, of course, and this is Gaza. 300 Palestinians live here. Among them 300,000. What? 3 million Palestinians. I hear myself. And checkpoints all over it, and our bases all over here. And in Hebron, when I serve, there is a Palestinian city. It's a Palestinian city which has a Israeli settlement in it, right exactly in it. So basically, it was my first time in a Palestinian city at all. After that, I served it near Bethlehem and all of that. This is one of the posters I've seen when I got in. It says it's about calling soldiers and their commanders to refuse an order to evacuate, to pull out illegal settlements. In Hebron, it's a legal settlement by the government, and there are some little illegal settlements around Hebron and inside. Kind of complicated, but it says that it says the soldier commander, we should distinguish between good and evil, between an ally and an enemy. And our ally is, of course, the settlers, and an enemy, of course, the Arabs. We should deport the enemy and not the ally. We all know what that means. And they rip it off. Before we came, and we focused on this sentence. Should distinguish between good and bad. They meant that we should distinguish between good and evil, between an ally and an enemy. Don't evacuate us, deport the Arabs. And when I look at that sentence, only this, I focused on that, we should distinguish between good and evil. It's quite simple sentence. Because when I was 18, in high school, I was growing up by this code, good and bad. It's a basic code that we live, that we grow up in it, by it. I mean, this is the basics of every education, good and bad. And when I look back, I look at that sentence, it's a joke to me. It's a joke. Because on the first night, I invaded houses. First night I was there, the code was broken. And if you had told me that I've been doing that, I'm going to do it, I wouldn't believe you. Because I know what's good and bad. I knew what's good and bad. And there are many stories in those booklets that breaks every time that code. This is what it's all based on. Good and bad. It's kind of blur, but this is my platoon commander, Omri. And this was our routine. This is patrol. This is a patrol. We patrol the old city, and we patrol with our M16, of course, and our vests and our magazines, very heavy, with our helmets. And it's not what we used to train in the desert. Now it's population. So you bumped into children, and when a children comes into you through your scope, when you aim your gun, you walk like that, and when children comes near your aims, you freeze because it's a child, and he may be look like your brother or not, but he's a child, innocent. So you get your gun a bit lower. You don't want something to happen because you have a gun. You have a bullet loaded in your gun because it's a dangerous place. And you walk. And first kid that happened, you shot, as I said. The third, and it's a routine. It becomes routine. And when we were in basics, the first thing that you learn when you get your M16, that this is a gun. A gun is not a toy. Because if Yehuda was my commander back then in basic, but he wasn't. When he was giving me, if he was giving me my gun and I would start playing like that, aiming it just for fun, I would be punished. Because it's a gun. And we all knew that. But after a routine of 8 by 8, what we call in Hebrew 8 by 8, it's 8 hours in a post or a patrol, 8 in the barracks. 8 hours patrol and 8 in barracks for months. For 3 years. This is our routine. Looking through scopes, through leaf nets, always with helmets. This was our life. So after 8 hours, you begin to get bored and you take pictures like that. I took this picture. I was a sniper, infantry sniper. I never shot him. But this is what I saw from the post I stand. I took the picture because it was fun. I got bored, I had to pass my time. So I took the camera, a very similar camera like I have here. I aimed my gun well through the landscape. Took some pictures. An hour has passed. An hour is a long time to pass. So I took pictures like that. And at night, I took pictures of my... Do you see well the picture? Can you turn the lights on?
Off.
Off. Here? Oh. Oh, that's better, yeah. Well, this is Billy. I took this picture also. I aimed at him also. Because it's a cool picture. I want a souvenir. Have you ever seen a night scope? No? Of course you did, because you weren't in the army. But I was. And it's kind of cool picture. I want to show it at home. Look, I'm an infantry sniper. Look, through the night scope. But I seem to forgot that this is a weapon. While patrolling, I forget that this is a weapon. I don't mind handing like this through a population. I don't mind. This is my tool. I go to bed with this tool. It's my best friend for 3 years. This M16. So I seem to forget this is a weapon. Yeah. This picture here, it's kids, settlers' kids, and it was 15 meters from the next picture, like this. Oh, I know, it's hard to look, but for me it's kind of regular picture, because the previous picture was 15 meters from that picture. Maybe it is confusing to you now, but as soon as I wear my uniform and all this crazy atmosphere around, I had to do some things. I had my mission, and I had my orders, So I had to play a role. Didn't have time. We'll think later about things. So my role is to patrol and to keep Hebron in order, and I maybe there's something wrong with that picture, but I'll get that later. That's what I was saying to myself. As I told you, the first night I invaded houses. Now invading houses, it's knock on the door at 2 a.m. and tell a family to go to one room because I need this house. I need this house for observation, and we're gonna be in that house for 2 hours, and time passes. 2 hours. After 2 hours, we leave that house. I didn't ask any questions. This was the thing. This is the thing you do. This is the thing you do because you're a part of this whole play. You ask the question later. And 50 meters from those kids that played, we were wearing those helmets, those big guns, and people were cuffed. And all seemed normal. Because back home, I didn't see those pictures. And when coming back home from vacation for 3 days, I can be mama boy and go to dance or something, go to a bar, come back to this reality for 3 years. So it's not a human being anymore, not through the scopes and not through not through those pictures, because this was in the barracks when I came. And all of those people here, those Palestinians sitting next to you because the intelligence wants them for investigation, or or we detained him in the checkpoint, or when he talks to one of us, smiles too much, talks very bad words, so we detain him. There are many reasons for detain, and it was very easily done. I can decide how long, and if so, he would be detained or not. It's my decision. So I can kick his ass while he's detained because I can. Nobody's going to say anything to me. Or I can ignore him. The thing is, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. He's not a human being anymore, to me. I'm trying to get this perspective. He's an object. Just like I took the picture through the scope, just like this man is photographed, just like this 15-year-old boy, maybe he had a fight with his mother and go out to the street when he was not allowed, but we cuffed him because he's a suspect. When I came to Hebron, it was 500 days of curfew in 2 years. And curfew is a great label. We all use those labels to label the things that we've done. You can call it jail, because curfew, it's actually jail in your own house. You're not allowed to leave, except for a couple of hours to do shopping. But to tell you the truth, we didn't know those hours and we didn't follow them so much. Everyone we spotted in the street, cuffed. Back then. Cuffed in a checkpoint if you didn't talk, if he smiled too much when I asked him for an ID. I cuff him. So I don't care if he's a 15-year-old boy. He's sitting there for 8 hours while I smoke, where I play with my friends. He's sitting there. And this, I'm not talking about the process of months of that. Because I've just came back from Amsterdam and Groningen, back in the Netherlands. And when I was hanging the pictures, before we opened the exhibition, we have an exhibition of those pictures, and we hang them in. We presented it in the Netherlands. And when I thought maybe I should do it in some order, I gave up in 5 minutes, because every picture that you see now, I've seen in the first week. I saw the graffitis, I saw those cuffed men and boys. I saw through scopes. I saw it all in 1 week. It was enough. 1 week. And the first day I came, as I invaded the house, it was enough to break this code of good and bad. What you call it? I give Yehuda the permission to speak after this story. This is Jabal and Ziad. This is their names. And on Friday, very tense day in Hebron, there was a curfew, and we arrested them, cuffed them, blind cuffed them, and put them there for a couple of hours. It was 12 hours. And to tell you a little bit of a background of my unit, it was a very unique unit. There's only one unit like that in the army. People are coming from kibbutz, and people are coming from youth movements, educators. Give 1 year before the army for education in communities. Some of them are still continuing to educate. We discussed about moral things. We discussed about the purity of arms. Discussed about many things. I think we are the best example of anyone who claims how to do occupation with silver gloves. And this story, for me, proves that it cannot be. We cuffed them, and we even give them a nice meal for dinner, while cuffed. But what was happened 15 meters away from them is a culture night that we did. Because we are all growing up in youth movements and very cultural people. So we did a culture night, because it's Friday. We were kind of a special company, very friendly. So we played games. We cuffed ourselves and played Happy Birthday for Jabal and Ziad. No one thought there's maybe something wrong with that. Because we didn't touch them. I told you, you don't have to touch them. You don't have to slack them or to kick their heads. It's impersonal, you see? All those, I didn't cuff you because I don't like you, because this was my orders in this whole situation. So I can laugh about you, because it's impersonal. I don't think they know, Jabal and Ziad, that what we did, but I think it's very in my mind still, this memory. This was this one of the sergeant, that is all my friends. And we just laughed about cuffed him, because I don't think we in our minds thought that there were actual human beings. And I think this is where it all begins, all these stories of the occupation. I describe how from an 18-year-old boy who believed that all men are equal, and all people, all women, everyone has the right, can easily do things like that. This is not a war crime, and it's not something the military or police can investigate. It's something that we did to ourselves. This was our state of mind.
try maybe to follow up by talking what we've done to others. In the beginning, when we used to invade houses, you know what? I'll maybe give a brief introduction about myself. My name is Yehuda. I'm 24 years old. I was, for a bit over half a year, company sergeant of Dotan. I served also for 3 years in the same unit, 2 years in occupied territories all around the West Bank. This is a picture from my platoon when I was a soldier in 2002 in Ramallah. Our post inside a Palestinian home in Ramallah. In the beginning, when we used to invade Palestinian houses, the rules were very strict. You're not allowed to use any private property except for what you need for military needs. As Dotan said, you know, in Israel we really believe and we really call it. We really believe that we can make occupation and sell gloves. We can make it nice, clean, and neat. So we use private property only for military needs. So you occupy the city, you have to control the city, how you make that. Invade to people's houses. Go inside, lock the family in the basement for a couple of days, or throw them out. It just depends how much time you're going to stay, for how long you're going to stay in the house. But again, the rules are very strict. You're not allowed to do anything to private property, except for what you need for military needs. This table, the chairs, you know, this is a part of our military needs. We need to build a post in the house. Believe it or not, even the first house that we entered, before we left, we washed the floor. There were big articles and big reports in the Israeli TV of how nice, how moral the IDF soldiers are. When we invade houses, we wash the floors. This is what we did in the first house. Second house. Third house. After 5 houses, you start to feel at home. You know, you forget the family that is locked in the basement. Sit down in the parents' room, take the pictures. And after a week that you're bored to death, you're inside the house and you played already all the computer games that this family has in the computer, so you're bored, so you start to walk around, you break things, you take pictures. Someone is in the basement locked, maybe. Or during our operation in a refugee camp near Ramallah, we were in operation searching a refugee camp, searching all the houses for ammunition, looking for ammunition and wanted people. 4 or 5 days of operation, 60, 100 houses a day, 18, 20 hours on foot, going from a house after an house after an house. But it was during the World Cup, Soccer World Cup. And in that specific day, there was a very important game. It was Argentina versus Nigeria, I think. Don't we deserve to see the game? So you walk in the streets, you look around you, that house, hey, they have a satellite plate. Probably they can stream the game. So you stop your operation, you enter to the house, the family is watching the game, but sorry, not today. Don't worry, not in this language. You lock the family in the room inside, sit down, watch the game finishes. You continue your operation. Or Jenin Refugee Camp, 2002. Soldiers are inside the refugee camp for over a week. Spoke about military needs, right? After a week in the field, ran out of water. When the big Caterpillar bulldozers, the big D9, entered the refugee camp of Jenin, on the way inside, they took off some of the walls around, because one of the problems in Palestinian cities is that the city designer didn't design the streets wide enough to allow those Caterpillar bulldozers to go through the streets. So while going, you just take off some of the walls around. This is a Palestinian grocery store in the entrance to the refugee camp. That's the wall. It's taking off by the bulldozer. Now the officer inside the refugee camp is going on the radio, calling on the radio to one of the soldiers with his APC, armored personnel carrier. It's like a tank without a cannon. Big proof that you use to carry on troops around. Goes on the radio, says to the soldiers, guys, we need some water. There's a grocery store in the entrance to the refugee camp. Go there, load only water, don't touch anything else. We're the good guys. Dotan spoke about good and evil. We only will take only what we need for military needs. Soldiers arrive to the grocery store, start to load water, but then you see cigarettes, a week without cigarettes. Chocolates, Coke, money. You can imagine yourself how it ended. And really I can continue, go on, and more stories like this for hundreds of pictures, and every picture the story behind, Jabal and Ziyad, looting, destroying property. Hundreds of them we can tell. Just to tell my personal story probably will take 2 years in the occupied territories, will probably take 8-7 years of talking. You can find hundreds of them in the booklets on our website. But I really want to go back to the mindset. I really want to go back to what it means, what is the mindset of an occupier, what allowed us to do these things. Dotan spoke a lot about his first minute in Hebron, his first day in Hebron. This picture is my first day in Hebron. This is Abu Snana neighborhood, Palestinian neighborhood in Hebron. Picture is taken up from Jabal Jual neighborhood, another Palestinian neighborhood, top of the hill. In Hebron, just that you get a bit, know a bit about Hebron. Hebron is the second biggest Palestinian city in the West Bank. 150,000 Palestinians live there. Around 650 settlers, and there are around 450 to 500 combat soldiers who guard them on a daily basis. The settlement in Hebron is in the valley. The Hebron Valley, together with the Palestinian Old City, and some more Palestinian neighborhoods around. Hebron was the only Palestinian city, if you don't count East Jerusalem, that wasn't given to the Palestinian authorities as a whole as part of the peace process, the Oslo peace process. In 1997, Y Accords, when Clinton was our president, Bibi Netanyahu was our prime minister, Yasser Arafat was there. Hebron was divided into two. 80% of the city was passed on to the Palestinian authorities. 20% stayed under Israeli authorization, which were inside these 20%, we had the settlement and the Tomb of Patriarchs, the old city, the Palestinian old city of Hebron. As a whole, there were around 30,000 Palestinians still inside this part of the city. The border between the Palestinian part and the Israeli part was like here, halfway this hill. In the beginning of the Intifada, September 2000, the Palestinians used to shoot every night from top of the hill down to the valley towards the settlement. We had no idea from where they're shooting. We have no idea who is shooting. But, we, the IDF, can't sit behind and see them shooting our settlements without doing anything. We must do something. We can't remain silent. So the decision was to take over 3 high posts. One of them was a Palestinian family, Palestinian home somewhere here, top of the hill. You enter to the house, give the family an hour and a half to pack up everything. Send them out. Until today, it's an IDF barrack. 6 years, the family is out of the house. A rooftop of a Palestinian family across the valley. And the third place is where this picture is taken from, the barrack an IDF barrack that we called the school. It was a Palestinian school that we closed down for 4.5 years, no school. We posted their machine guns, grenade machine guns, snipers. The idea was they shoot, we must do something. We must respond. We have no idea from where they're shooting, so every post like that had like 10 to 15 targets. Empty building or abandoned buildings. All this puzzle. This was one of us. We called it the nylon factory. The greenhouses. The 3 floors. 10 to 15, targets in this puzzle. The idea was, again, they shoot, we shoot back. During my professional infantry training, I was trained as a grenade machine gun operator. In these posts, we had machine guns, grenade machine guns. And that's why my first day in Hebron was here. Standing in this window, seeing exactly the same view that you see now. Noontime, my platoon officer is briefing me, look, Yehuda. Our mission is when they shoot, we shoot back. The first moment when I heard this mission, I was totally shocked. I didn't believe what I'm hearing. I just finished my training, 6 months of training. My second week in the occupied territories, just arrived there to Hebron. Standing in the window, a huge machine gun on my right, grenade machine gun, it's a huge machine gun. A pile of 500-600 of grenades that are waiting to be fired by me. I look down to the guard and I see piles of hundreds of grenades that were shot, hundreds of shells of grenades that were fired by forces before us from the same spot. In front of me, this neighborhood. And in the back of my mind, I remember the safety rules which we used when I was trained in this machine gun. It was somewhere in the middle of the desert, south part of Israel, the Negev. In order to shoot 3 live grenades, no one was allowed to be like 1.5 kilometers from each side of the target. And now I'm standing in front of a neighborhood where people live. I'm going to shoot there. Now there are 2 things that we must understand before we really can understand this example, this story. First of all, we're talking about grenades, not bullets. Grenade hits the target, explodes, kills everyone in a radius of 8 meters, injures everyone in a radius of 16 meters. We're talking about a machine gun. It's not a sniper. It's not an accurate weapon. You don't aim at your target, put it, you saw the sniper gun. Put it in the middle, pull the trigger, the target is down. A machine gun, I would say, it's much more statistic weapon. You aim to the area of your target, you pull the trigger, you see where you hit, you fix the aiming, a bit to the right, a bit to the left, up, down. If you're a real good operator in the 5th or 6th time that you will try, you'll hit your target. First time that I hear it, I'm totally shocked. But that's 2 o'clock noontime. Till 6 o'clock when the Palestinians would shoot and we would have to shoot back, there was a long time to go. 6 o'clock comes, Palestinians shoot. My battalion officer is issuing out the order through the radio. We called it back then Ghost Town, which means from now on, 3 posts, 3 barracks that I mentioned. All the machine guns are starting to shoot. Came out like 15 machine guns. It's the first night. I still don't believe that I'm going to shoot the neighborhood where people live. So you approach the machine gun. Shoot, not shoot. This is the mission. This is why we're here. We must shoot. But it's mad. It doesn't make sense. Is it wrong? Good or bad? So you pull the trigger. You leave it as fast as you could. And inside of you, you just pray that the less amount of grenades were fired. I don't know if you can see it good, clear in this picture, but we're talking about 1 kilometer away, the line of the targets. So you have the 4 or 5 seconds till the grenades hit the target. And inside of you, just pray that you didn't hurt anyone around. and you see where you hit, you fix your aiming a bit to the right. This is the first night. Second night, you're less tense. The third night, after a week, it's becoming the exciting moment of the day. What's more fun than to shoot grenades? I know, I see most of the people here are not in this age, but if you go in the malls and you see the youngsters, people my age, playing with video games, this was the real thing, for free. After a month, and it didn't work, you know, Palestinians shoot, we shoot back. They're not afraid. They continue to shoot, it doesn't work. They don't get the message. So we decided, no problem. If every day at 6 o'clock when it gets dark, they shoot. So every day in 5:30 we will shoot to deter them. We call it deterrence fire. So every day 5:30 all the machine guns open fire. 5:30 till a quarter after 6 we shoot. We stop at a quarter after 6. 6:30 they shoot. We must respond. So a quarter to 7 to 7:30 we shoot back. After a couple of weeks, if this doesn't work also, so we decided no problem. In those times, as I said, this was considered Palestinian territory. No one is the IDF didn't invade this area. It was before Defensive Shield operation in April 2002 when the IDF reoccupied all the Palestinian cities. But you know, we must stop him. We must keep order. So we said, no problem. Every day, 5:30, instead of shooting him, 2 APCs will invade their neighborhoods and will do what we called back then, make our presence felt, do violent patrols.
APCs?
APCs, sorry, armored personal carrier. What it means, violent patrols, I want to read you testimony of one of my friends that describes what we used to do there. Well, this was following, there was a call-up one night, meaning we went in with 2 APCs, armored personal carriers, and we started driving through Abu Snina. This was after there had been too much shooting in town, meaning the Arabs started shooting in the direction of the Jewish settlements, and we fired back. Well, sometimes we used to go in there to demonstrate. When the shooting would get out of hand, we would simply go in, would go with APCs, pay a visit to Abu Snina, just to make our presence felt. Do all sorts of things, shoot at some houses, just to intimidate them. So, I don't know. Just so they won't try again. Anyhow, that night we went with 2 APCs, one of them belonging to the platoon commander. That's the one I was in. And another one following us. And what we did, simply in order to deter them, we simply moved through Abu Snina with 2 APCs, and all what we did was shoot. Shoot. We were shooting. We stopped by a house, we moved through a street, and we fired at houses, not on windows. We fired at all kinds of houses. And I remember I was a slightly better shot. The guy who gave the testimony was a sharpshooter, sniper to close distance. My task was to shadow street lights, and I remember that I fired at car windshields. And one of the soldiers who was with me fired a rifle with a grenade launcher right into a shop. Simply into a Palestinian shop, to blow up the shop. And all of this for no good reason. I mean, deterrence. And not one of us asked himself that night what he was doing in order to actually, you know, by way of response. I remember myself that night, I really meant it when I said that night, when I said that it was me who fired at street lights, me who fired at cars, because it was me. I mean, among all those soldiers, I was shooting. And I remember that not one of us that night, all of us were happy that we got the opportunity to shoot at streetlights and cars. Because there's nothing so cool. Nothing like hearing a streetlights blow to bits after you've taken aim at it. And you know, I remember us doing it with such determination and with such a smile. And I don't know, I consider myself someone who actually did think of what he was doing during his army service and tried to avoid doing such things. And like, I remember where this reality how it managed to sweep me into doing these things without conscience, without any thoughts. Maybe yes, afterwards. But what good is that? Simply with the shit-hitting brain on my face. You know, driving through the streets, see a parked car, throw an hand grenade, boom, punching a grenade, make our presence felt. Now, I picked this testimony not because it's the only testimony that talks about these kind of patrols. I picked this testimony because this is maybe one of the strongest testimonies in my eyes because it talks about himself. Nir, my friend who gives the testimony, talks about himself. Because when we call ourselves breaking the silence, we refer to two levels of silences that we must break as ex-occupiers. And the first level of silence is a very personal level. It's first of all to confront the mirror, look at yourself in the mirror and realize what we've done. The other level of silence is also in this story exactly, and exactly the same story. And that's the silence of the system, that's the silence of the army, that's the silence of the Israeli society. Because when I was sitting down for 4 months every night shooting grenades into Abu Snena, my parents woke up the next morning in Jerusalem, turned on the Israeli radio, and heard a sentence in the news that every Israeli can complete me by heart. IDF forces returned fire to the sources of fire in Hebron. This is what people knew what I did, about what I did. It was for us in breaking the silence when we realized that the 100 checkpoints that we have in the West Bank do not exist to prevent Palestinians to enter Israel. Every Palestinian who lives in the West Bank knows how to bypass every checkpoint in the West Bank. These checkpoints exist to create for us, the Israeli society, the there and here. To allow us to fall asleep quietly. Wake up in the morning, sit down in a coffee shop, and not talk about what's going on. You know, Jerusalem, Bethlehem, Palestinian city, Israeli city, 1 mile between. Two different realities. Behind the wall, behind the checkpoint. Maybe the silence of the Israeli society is maybe probably the national project inside Israel. One of the things that almost everything in our society is aimed to protect it. Not to open this discussion. Not to see what's going on there. What we do in breaking the silence, we always say that what we do, our work is try to hold a big mirror in front of the Israeli society and try to show to ourselves for the first time, how do we look like in the mirror? For what are we responsible? What is being done in our behalf? Because the worst thing for an Israeli is to really look in the mirror. For us here in the United States, sit down here and to talk about, those Israeli soldiers in the West Bank who become monsters. It's very easy. Because it's those, them, far away. To sit in the room and to say, yes, an occupation has an imminent corruption process within that no one is immune from. You can't avoid. Once you're an occupier, you act as such. And acting as such is just, we just even start to touch the beginning of what this such means. Really, about the very banal things. To admit this, it's very easy. But to an Israeli mother to sit there in the audience and to truly admit it, it's to admit that her son that is now in Jenin is acting the same. That her husband that she sleeps with every night, military service in Israel doesn't end when you're 21 after 3 years. If you're a combat soldier until 45 years old, every year, 1 month, reserve duty. So her husband that she sleeps with every night, once a year, 1 month in the occupied territories, and exactly the same. And again, as I said, until now we've, stayed on the very banal level of this corruption process. And I don't want to really enter where it ends, where it leads to. What's the next step? But you can't talk today about what's going on in the occupied territories and not talk about what's going on now in Gaza. The IDF invaded Bet Hanun, a Palestinian city north of Gaza. Just in the last weekend, 36 Palestinians were killed. Of course, according to the IDF, I think the IDF admitted in the beginning that only 2 were civilians. I opened Israeli press releases today talking about in all this operation 62 Palestinians were killed. And the IDF admits that 18 of them were unarmed. I don't know what's really the numbers. I have no idea. I'm not there, and I didn't interview anyone who served there now. I'm here in the United States. And I will try to maybe read a testimony, short testimony, of an IDF soldier from an elite unit who served in Nablus in 2003, the end of 2003, that describes what they did when they used to invade cities. And maybe it will give us a perspective where to start to look. Maybe it will give us a perspective that, what we're talking about is not in 2001 when I started my military service, not in the end of 2002 when Dotan started his military service. These things didn't end when we were discharged. They didn't start when we were drafted. They didn't end yesterday. And probably not tomorrow. Although it's sad to say that. There's a testimony, as I said, of a soldier who served in an elite unit. This is what we do in Breaking the Silence. Heart of our work is to interview soldiers. So I come to interview the guy, put on the microphone. Let's start with the things you want to tell, the things lying heavy on your heart. This is how the soldier starts. What disturbs me the most, and what bothers me the most, is the lack of value of human life in the occupied territories. Of course, not that of Israelis. When my friend was killed, a squat comrade was killed, I caught myself suddenly saying, voila. Here is a man gone in the middle of his life. A person whose life has stopped. All the aspects of a human being, his aspiration, what he was, what he said, the happy moments of his life, his friends. A man's life has lots of aspects. And all of a sudden, everything stopped. And then it dawned on me that this was the death of a human being. And then you start to think, voila, what about all these people we killed? And my team killed 6 innocent people. Or at least, apparently innocent people. Some were killed by mistake. Really by mistake. But what's a mistake? Really. Say, we're sorry. We killed your husband, your daughter, your child, or your grandfather, or whoever else. And there were those executed in orders that, in my opinion, were illegal. As I told you, the most disturbing thing to me is that there is an absolutely Wild West in the occupied territories. Brigade commanders, regiment commanders, and company commanders do whatever comes to their mind. No one checks them, and no one stops them. We got in for many nights in the Kasbah of Nablus, the old city of Nablus, and our firing orders were, between 2 to 4 a.m., anybody spotted in their Kasbah is doomed to die. 2 words, doomed to die. Doesn't have to be armed. Wrong time, right place, wrong place. And I asked him, who spoke these words? Of course, it's the company officer for every mission, used to brief us. And he starts, 6 people. Good, good soldiers. Elite unit, they must deal with what they do, right? So every Palestinian got a name. The woman, child, the old man, the scout, the drummer, the baker. The drummer was killed really by mistake. It was an arrest operation during the Ramadan. In the Ramadan, before the fast starts, there are people who are walking early in the morning before the fast starts, walking in the streets and waking people up with drums that they should eat before the fast. They were inside the Kasbah. They didn't know that they're in the Ramadan. People walk with drums to wake people up. Came to arrest someone. It was dark, night. Suddenly they saw someone walking in the street with something. They called him to stop. He was totally terrified. He didn't understand from where it came. He started running. Shot him. He's dead. From now on, he's the drummer. The baker is a different story. A bit different. This is a guy who was in the wrong place in the wrong time. Soldiers were in an ambush inside a Palestinian house. Everyone was in between 2 to 4. Is doomed to die. The guy walks in the street. They shoot him. Come close to the body. They verify his killing, his death. Open the bag that he had. Pita buns. He's the baker from now on. And some more stories. But this is, again, as we said, a beginning of this corruption process, how it starts. This is, again, the beginning of where it ends, where it leads to. And I brought these stories just, to make the connection. Again, it's not 2001, 2002. It's why we're standing here. More or less. Only curfew. Only seeing some soccer games in houses. Only shooting drummers. And probably you ask yourself, what I'm doing here. What do I want from you guys? It sounds like maybe it's something that Israelis should sit around the table and confront themselves in front of a mirror, right? Worst comes to worst, okay, we'll let the Palestinians go into the circle and we'll talk with them. But for me, it's very clear why I'm here. I see the work of breaking the silence as a way of taking responsibility. Because when I understood what I've done as a soldier, I couldn't go back in time and change my decisions. This technology doesn't exist yet. Maybe in 100 years from now, soldiers will do this. In my eyes, at least I can stand up, tell the story, break the silence, and demand from others to take responsibility. Demand from the Israeli society, maybe for the first time, to ask yourself and to confront the mirror and to try to debate and really talk and start to see all the story of the occupation, all this reality in the occupied territories through moral vernaculars, through a moral perspective. Maybe for the first time to ask yourself as a society, what is our moral boundaries? Did we cross it? To put 150,000 Palestinians under curfew for 520 days during 2 years. Is this behind our red line or not? If not, do you shoot anyone in the street between 2 to 4? Is this behind or not? If yes, Take responsibility. Break the silence. Stand up. And responsibility doesn't end with being an ex-occupier to tell the story. Responsibility doesn't end with being an Israeli. Responsibility is your responsibility. Everyone is responsible. If you take the phrase, breaking the silence, and you try to look at it and to understand it in a much deeper perspective, in a much deeper moral perspective, you look to our history. You know, during all history, human beings have done atrocities that the Israeli occupation that doesn't even get close to them. But always there are very few people who are doing this stuff. There were very few people during last weekend in Gaza, very few combat soldiers. Probably not more than 1,000. I must say that I think of much less. There are very few, 650 settlers in Hebron, 450 combat soldiers, 1,100 people, that's it. Israel had 7 million people. Always it was the problem, not the few people who were there. It was all the people who were silent with it. And if there is one place outside of Israel that probably has the most responsibility, at the end of the day, my chief of staff, my prime minister doesn't have to report, not to the UN, not to the EU. There is one place that he has to file a report. This is where we stand. This is why I'm here. To ask ourselves as a whole, is this behind our red light? Yes or no? I want to say thank you very much for everyone for coming tonight.
You've been watching the presentation, Breaking the Silence, Israeli Soldiers Speak Out. Our speakers have been Dotan, Greenvald and Yehuda, Shaul. This program was recorded on November 7, 2006, at the Friends Meeting Hall in Portland, Oregon. For more information about this program, please visit our website at www.pdxjustice.org. You'll find links to the Breaking the Silence website, as well as descriptions of our other programs, which are all available as streaming video and audio. This has been a PDX Justice Media Productions presentation. Thank you for tuning in, and thank you for supporting public access cable television, net neutrality, and all forms of grassroots democratic community media.
Ally is, of course, the settlers, and an enemy, of course, the Arabs, who should deport the enemy and not the ally. We all know what that means. And they rip it off. Before we came, and we focused on this sentence. Should distinguish between good and bad. They meant that we should distinguish between good and evil, between an ally and an enemy. Don't evacuate us, deport the Arabs. And when I look at that sentence, only this, I focused on that, we should distinguish between good and evil. It's quite simple sentence. Because when I was 18, in high school, I was grown up by this code, good and bad. It's a basic code that we live, that we grew up in it, by it. I mean, this is the basics of every education, good and bad. And when I look back, I look at that sentence, it's a joke to me. It's a joke. Because on the first night, I invaded houses. First night I was there, the code was broken. And if you had told me that I've been doing that, I'm going to do it, I wouldn't believe you. Because I know what's good and bad. I knew what's good and bad. And there are many stories in those booklets that breaks every time that code, being in the mind of occupier. And later on, we're going to tell how we got from the process to breaking the silence. For a little historic briefing, this is the West Bank, of course, and this is Gaza. 300 Palestinians live here. Among them 300,000. What? 3 million Palestinians. Can hear myself. And checkpoints all over it, and our bases all over here. And in Hebron, when I serve, there is a Palestinian city. It's a Palestinian city which has a Israeli settlement in it, right exactly in it. So basically, it was my first time in a Palestinian city at all. After that, I served it near Bethlehem and all of that. This is one of the posters I've seen when I got in. It says it's about calling soldiers and their commanders to refuse an order to evacuate, to pull out illegal settlements. In Hebron, it's a legal settlement by the government, and there are some little illegal settlements around Hebron and inside. Kind of complicated, but it says that it says the soldier commander, we should distinguish between good and evil, between an ally and an enemy, and other. And I served in Hebron after basics. I did my basics here in the desert, and I arrived Hebron. It's over here. And I can tell you that the first night I was shocked. I've never seen so much hatred from the settlers. I've seen many graffitis that I was very amazed to see. But I was already inside. I played a role. I had my uniform, and I had my gun, and I had my helmet. I played a role in that play. And when the bus arrived, it was night to Hebron, and we got off the bus, and the company that we replaced got on the bus. Very short briefing by the platoon commander, and my platoon commander took me and other 5 guys to do the first patrol in the city at night. And after 2 hours, follow him, very narrow places, very dark, very, very scary. We invaded a house, and from then on, I think that the whole process of being numbless has begun. I don't really know when it began, but I think this is the point where I, for myself, point that this was the start. And then I'm going to tell a story of how I came to this process of being numbless. And well, I'm Dotan, and this is Yehuda. You can see him in the picture. This is Yehuda when he was a rookie. He was later my sergeant. I was under his command. I still is. And today I'm going to tell the story of the occupation from our point of view. Breaking the silence is an organization of ex-soldiers who participated in the occupation, and it's here to tell the point of view from the inside. I mean, literally inside, what we felt doing those actions. Forget the politics, forget the historical debate. what we felt. Not here to talk about the Palestinians or the settlers. I'm here to talk about the soldiers. That's us. Today at Breaking the Silence, I'm in charge of getting more and more of testimonies from other soldiers. It's been 2.5 years now, and we've gathered more than 1,000 stories from more than 400 soldiers. And it all began when Yehuda got released, at the time that he was released, and he expressed something while discussing that we all felt inside. We felt after a while in military service, we felt that something was wrong. To tell the truth, I didn't know exactly what was it back then, and it took me a year of process to understand it. This is me. This is the picture of me back then. I used to have glasses and my M16, which I carried for 3 years. Now I grew up here. This is Haifa Bay, and I can tell you that when I was 18 and joined the army for 3 years, like everyone else do it by law in Israel, this part of the West Bank in Gaza, which is the occupied territories, was very far from anything I knew. I knew that there were settlers there and Palestinians over there also. In the West there is 3 million Palestinians here, and among them 300,000 settlers. And I knew there was something, because I was politically aware.